Are you saying that I believe in heaven and hell, that I believe in this God as the God and as righteous, that I know I'm sinning, and that my best plan is to purposely say I don't believe in him, even when I really do, that after 30 years of loving and following and knowing God and counting on him for my salvation and wanting to please him, that one day I just woke up and loved my sin so much I pretended he didn't exist? Make it make sense. Welcome to Mindshift. I'm Brandon, and today's another Tuesday Takedown video. Now, takedown has never meant taking down a person, wanting to get them canceled, wanting to disparage them individually, etc. It's taking down bad ideas, bad logic, bad philosophy, bad arguments, and it actually got me thinking about how important it is to be precise with your speech. And so I wanted to make a kind of foundational video here where I could explain atheism and what it means to me, at least, once and for all, and we can have this as some place to point back to. The amount of people that have commented what an atheist actually is, why people actually become an atheist, what I must mean when I say this, how ridiculous it is that I criticize God if I don't believe in him, why I care about this God so much if I supposedly believe that he doesn't even exist. It just goes on and on and on. And I think there's a couple reasons for it, and this is kind of what I want to explore in today's video. We're going to look at a few apologists and pastors and their horrendous caricatures of what they think atheists are, or how they're choosing to try to portray an atheist, and try to hone in and really zero down on a working definition that we can all use. Now, I think people are still going to say what they want to say and believe what they want to believe and do what they want to do. Fine. Can't control anyone. Don't want to. I would like to try to influence the conversation towards being ever more beneficial. So let's look at a few examples of what I'm talking about here and just start replying and narrowing down these definitions.
Atheists are fascinating people. The reason that they're fascinating is because the old atheists were the people who wanted to argue with us on facts and evidence and these sorts of things. The new atheists are the ones who say there is no God and we hate him.
All right. So the first thing there is this old versus new atheist, and I think that you cannot just put everyone in this camp. How long has new atheism been going on for? That's typically regarded to the Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, I forget the fourth one, and they represent this new breed of atheist that hates all religion, and all religion is bad for all people all the time, and there's no good use of religion. It's usually attacking very specific principles and ideas, and also trying to have a broader understanding that even the benefit and the beauty that is and can be found in religion might not be worth the trouble. It might not outweigh the bad or the potential bad by continuing to propagate these ideas. That sounds fair to me. And then let's hear back from the other side and let's have a good discussion there. But I haven't heard anything like what this pastor is describing. But professing that you do know a God exists, that you do know his will, that you do know his morality, that he speaks to you individually, and that he has good things for good people and bad things for bad people sets a stage for so many horrendous things. I just did a video about the dichotomy of the divine, where we talk about how mentally abusive the belief in these two concepts, these two core concepts of religion can be. That being how lowly and awful and sinful we are, and also how we are made in God's image and a chosen people, etc. I think it goes on past that, but that's not what this video is about. This video is just to say, this seems to me like an unfair characterization of atheists, and that they have to fall in these camps, that old atheists really wanted to deal with the arguments, and no one today, in all of new atheism, all of the atheists that are out there today, they just want to say how much they hate this God they don't believe in. I've never said anything close to that. I don't hate God because I don't believe he exists. But if you're going to continue to tell me that I need this God to exist to get my morality from this God, because it's the only place I can have a morality, and it's the only way that morality cannot be subjective, then I am within my right to point out to you, the person saying this, that I don't believe your God is objectively moral. Is that too confusing? Can you not understand the hypothetical that I am playing in within your worldview? If that God did indeed exist, I don't see him based on his own words, not that I believe those words were actually written or inspired by him, because I don't. But if I have to give a caveat like that every time I respond to anything a Christian has said, these videos will be hours long. It's a hypothetical. And this seems to just fall on deaf ears, because comment after comment after comment is, well, then why do you believe in God if he's so awful? What? Like, that's not at all what I'm saying. So I'm going to just as clearly as I can, and this will be the one spot I point back to so I don't say it in all my future videos. I don't believe that the Abrahamic God is real, which is the God we're mainly talking about on this channel. Well, Brandon, why not criticize all the other gods? Because I don't have the experience in those religions. I've gone to Bible college. I was one of the top junior Bible quiz champions in the entire country. I spent 30 years of my life worshiping Yahweh, the Abrahamic God of the Protestant religion that I was indoctrinated into. This is where I feel like I have a voice to really speak out against. Now, I don't believe in Allah, but I'm not going to try to argue Quran scriptures. Not because I think they're so weighty and correct, but because I don't understand the context enough to have what I think is a fair say. There are many ex-Muslims that can handle that much better than myself, so I'll let them. But I do know what the average American Protestant thinks, not just in the fundamentalist groups, but in the progressive groups. And I do know that source material very well. Because of that, and because of the harm that I've seen happen in my own life and the life of my friends and my families, I have a personal investment into trying to get people to understand the truth about this particular religion. That's why I care. I care because it affects real people on a daily basis. I care because it changes the world quite literally. And I and the people I love are a part of that world. Saying an atheist shouldn't have a say or shouldn't be able to interpret scripture or shouldn't get to judge Christians is ridiculous. Not all Christians are bad people. I don't think that at all. But many people who do profess to be believers do very awful and harmful things in the name of their God. Should we just not speak about harm if we're not the ones involved in it? How would that go for putting murderers on trial? Well, you've never killed anyone. You shouldn't get to talk about this crime. It's ridiculous.
The atheist is the one who looks down his nose at us and say, you simple-minded people. Here we are with science on our side, and you want to come to us as people who believe that your sky father built the world and created the world in 6 days out of nothing.
He's grouping all atheists together, which is not fair to do. Are there some atheists that probably think they're better than the believer on an individual level because of the knowledge they have that the believer obviously doesn't? I'm sure that there are, and that's awful. And I think those people should not act that way. But we're not a coalition. There's no claim that atheism makes you more moral. There's no claim that it has the perfect philosophy for how to live your life or attain meaning. It doesn't answer a lot of questions. In fact, it answers almost none. It's simply not believing in a particular God. That's it. That's all. To make any further claim about atheists as a group in general is insanity and quite hypocritical, because every time that I respond to anyone, like Saturday's video when I was responding to a Calvinist claim, so many comments were, well, way to cherry pick the Calvinist to make your straw man about all Christians. Never said it represented all Christians. I said, here's a man, here's what he's saying. He's using the Bible to make that claim. I think it's a pretty good claim if you believe the Bible is scripturally true. And here's why I don't think that it's correct in general. At no point attacks all Christians, because it also happens when I attack something a progressivist says. Then the fundies are like, well, that doesn't stand for me. And then when I respond to a fundamentalist comment about Noah's Ark and the earth not being 6,000 years old, I hear from all the progressive and Catholic Christians that, oh my gosh, there's 2,000 years we've progressed. We don't believe this. That's silly. That doesn't represent all Christians. You Americans are nuts. Brandon, your background is ridiculous. Like, here it is as simply as I can put it. If your God and your holy book has led to 10,000 iterations, some studies say as high as 45,000 iterations of Christian sects where you guys have divine salvation over here this way, or the literalism of the Bible over here this way, or the need for a direct communicator over here, like, you guys took the same source material for the most part and built out 10,000 iterations. And I'm never allowed to say anything about one because you don't want me misrepresenting the other 9,999. So my caveat always is, hey, a lot of people believe this. And here's where they're getting it from, the Bible. So let's talk about what the Bible really says. Let's look at it with context. Let's look at it with history. Let's see why the Bible isn't valid in the first place. That's it. That's why we're going through this entire secular Bible study book by book. I would never group all of you Christians together any more than saying you all believe in the same Abrahamic God and you're all, for the most part, with some exceptions that are clearly stated, using the same books as your source material. And because of that, I think there's some overlap that can be talked about in generalities. But to say that atheists stand for something, have a mission, have a goal, have a view of morality that they share, agree on the same philosophies or ethics is silly. There's no grouping or co-aligning of us at all. There are some secular societies for sure. There are some humanistic manifestos and things of this nature that people can subscribe to, but simply not believing in a God is just that. So if you want to group us all together, I'll give you permission to group people that have proclaimed themselves to be atheist of the Abrahamic God to mean that these people do not find enough evidence or personal conviction in the claims that have been made about this God, his Son, his Holy Spirit, and his holy book. Full stop.
You want to bring that nonsense to me when I'm a scientific person who knows better than that. I know that the world came into being because nothing exploded.
Now, in keeping with what I said about atheists not being a group that you can just say all atheists believe this, I'm not trying to speak for all atheists. I want to clear the air for me and for this channel as we move forward. I believe science is a tool, not a religion, not something to believe in. It is a process. It is a method for determining truth to the best of our abilities, sometimes within vast limitations. It can be manipulated. It can be downright wrong. It can be riddled with error, and it can misinform. It is not divine, but over a long period of time, science has allowed us to do things that otherwise we would have never been able to do. And over getting things wrong many times, it has allowed us part of the process to actually narrow in on what is true or what could be true. The very fact that science can be wrong sometimes, the very fact that science tries to disprove other claims that science is previously or currently making, tells me it's already more reliable than a holy book. To say, this is it, it's perfect, when it's clearly not, when there's contradictions and impossibilities, bad history, bad science, incorrect understanding, and saying it can't change and it is perfect, and then basing your worldview off of that while allowing for no new information in your life, that seems like a very broken system. But my whole point here was that this idea of atheist believing in and choosing science over God is just false across the entire board of it. It's not a choice between God and science. And if there was a real God who really created this earth, I would have to assume it would align with science. So when I see a God that supposedly created physics in our physical world and the grandiosity of the universe get very, very simple things wrong to the extent that someone who lived 2,500 years ago would have got it wrong, that just looks man-made to me. And I can use our current understanding of the things that we do know to not believe anymore in the things that were claimed to be known that we now know are false. That's it. What I wouldn't say, and what I've never heard any other atheist actually say out loud that keeps getting brought up though in videos like this, is this belief that we know how the universe started, that we have all the answers. Me not believing in Yahweh does not mean that I know the origins of how the universe started. And I don't have to understand those origins to dismiss Yahweh. Like, why are these linked together? Have you ever known something was not true on one hand while still not knowing something else? Like, I don't understand all the workings or have knowledge of how an internal combustion engine works. But I do know that if there's gas in my car and my engine isn't broken, when I push on the gas pedal, it's going to propel me forward. There are certain things that can be known without understanding its entirety. So if I had some other source over here that told me my car only worked if I believed hard enough, this small understanding about what is going on in my car, even if I can't explain the whole thing, is enough for me to say, nope, I know it doesn't work just off belief. So our small understanding of what has happened in the last 13.8 billion years and how old the earth is and the evolution of creatures and things of this nature, I don't understand all of it. Science hasn't been able to explain everything, but we've been able to show enough and prove enough that it's conflicting enough with the account of over here it being done in 6 days and just at the will and breath of a God, and it was good and that it happened in a certain order. No, I can know that's false without understanding its entirety because of what science has been able to show us so far. That's it. Like, these are the kinds of claims we are making. Again, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but this is the video to do it. Stick with me. We are going to iron out, at least in one video, at least for me, what my atheism is.
That's a stupid question. I know somebody made it because it exists. It just can't come out of nothing.
There is no such thing as nothing. For nothing to exist would cause it to be something. Creationists believe that God created the universe out of literally nothing.
Just showing these videos for a little bit of fun because I think that the apologist, whether they are doing it just to be funny, which is fine, or they're doing it because they really believe all atheists are like this, or they're doing it to pander to their crowd or whatever it is, I just still think it's kind of gross. But there is this idea or this connotation of this snooty, self-righteous air of atheism. I don't feel better than anyone else. I feel really lucky that my causal chain, if you will, allowed me to end up in a place where I would be able to not believe and devote my life any longer to something that I believe to not only be untrue, but disbeneficial. I feel lucky for that. Honestly, if we're just characterizing groups here, I would say more often than I've seen atheists be kind of snobby about this, it seems to be the Christians. I've gotten far worse and far meaner comments and threats from Christians. And the difference is that atheist doesn't have a holy book to point back to that has a code of conduct that I should be kind to people. I would say maybe we should all just stop pointing fingers, because it kind of seems like we're all just people who have the capacity sometimes to be rude or unnecessarily mean. So these videos of this kind of snooty air of the atheist that is better than thou, fine. I'm sure there's more than a few atheists out there that have embodied that, and Christians have had some bad experiences with them, and now they're creating this character of them, and that's fine. But it's not beneficial. I don't think it helps. I just think, like, isn't the goal here, and maybe I'm wrong about this, isn't the goal of both sides truth, right? Like, I can sympathize. I can sympathize with the Christian who has been told their whole life that there is only one God, that there's good reason to believe in God, that God gave us a message, and only reading certain parts of that message kind of makes sense in how you can develop this belief system and worldview. I know because I was in it for 30 years. And my mission as a Christian for so long was also truth. Okay, if this God exists, and I believe that he does, and my job is to worship him, to obey him, to love him, to follow his commands, which is what I want to do, then let's get to the truth of that. What is important to God? Should I be tithing? Should I become a missionary? How should I be training up my children? What is the truth of what we should do, when we should do it, and how is the best way to do it? And because I believed in Christianity and this all-knowing, all-powerful God who had given us his word and wanted this truth for us, at least that was my belief, I was still very much looking for the truth. It's just that my worldview was hyper-specific and narrowed. And it was that quest for truth that actually let some of the blinders start falling off, and it really unraveled. And I think that this is actually the most common situation that you get in atheist. I think a lot of people who are just not raised spiritually and claim themselves to be an atheist or an agnostic or anything like that, I'm sure that they are. I'm not saying they're sincere or insincere. I'm saying they probably haven't had to examine that claim. Just like a lot of Christians who just grow up and they said the sinner's prayer when they were 5 with their parents and they got baptized at 6. Like, they're just a Christian. That's their title. It's kind of like their ethnicity or their last name. Like, this is just who they are. Like, how much have they really doubted or gone through the process of critiquing what they believe and why and other worldviews, right? And that's fair on both sides. But then you have 2 more levels. You have the Christians that do the work, that really look at what they believe and why, and they're either convinced of it or they're not. And if they're convinced of it, I think a lot of those people go on to take a further step in their Christianity as a pastor, a missionary, involved in ministry of some kind, all the way up to apologetics. And then I think if you've done the work and you've gone through it and you found the opposite, that this isn't reliable or a valid source of truth, and that this God doesn't look like who I was told to believe in, etc., you get this non-believer in this specific God. Both people ended up here looking for truth. And I do have to assume that they are just seeking truth and this is what they think the truth is. Why can't they assume that for us? And I think that there's a difference there. I'm going to show you another video right now that I think explains that difference, and we'll talk about it quickly.
Look, they don't like God. I don't believe that anyone ever rejects the properly presented gospel for purely intellectual reasons. I don't think that ever occurs. And now atheists are going, oh no, that's not true. I have well, at the judgment, that'll all be exposed, and we're going to see. Because frankly, I don't think they want to submit their lives to God, and so they're just making up excuses. And you're going, oh, there's not enough evidence for Christianity. No, you are wicked and you don't want Christianity to be true. That's the real issue.
It makes the blood boil. I'm having to take a second before I respond to you to not immediately go back on everything I just said and say, this guy's so insincere and stupid. holy cow, how frustrating, right? I can understand the Christian side of believing that they have the truth and still knowing that they have the best intention of wanting to know the truth. I think that there's a lot of blinding that happens, whether it's through indoctrination or confirmation bias via personal experience or any of these things that continues to tell them that what they have is right. And it's this little echo chamber, and it's this psychology at play that keeps people, the whole point is go to your Bible study, and then you have Sunday church, and then you are married to a spouse that believes the same thing, and your friends believe the same thing. Like, it's always so that it's coming back at you, it's reverberating, and it feels like truth when it's all you're hearing. It can happen to us too. It can happen to atheists. It can happen to anyone, maybe with a political ideology, and you only involve yourself in those subreddits, and you only listen to that kind of news, and you hang out with people that believe the same thing, and it's these little echo chambers, this reverberation, always making you feel like, yeah, that's right. Look, everyone I know believes this. All the smart people in my life believe this, and it's a false way of knowing something, and it's very human. And atheists are, again, just as susceptible. But what this gentleman is saying here is everything that is wrong with a Christian assuming what an atheist really is here. And this breaks down on so many levels. So let's talk about this piece by piece and what he said, and that's how we're going to end today's video.
Look, they don't like God.
I'll speak for myself here. I don't like the version of God that the Bible portrays. If the Bible is to be used at all to understand who God is, what he wants, what he cares about, etc., based off just reading that Bible, I do not like that character. We've all heard it, but if you're reading Harry Potter and you don't like Voldemort, it's not because you believe in him. It's within the context of the story, you can understand that he's the bad guy. If I watch Star Wars, here's the second most common example, I don't have to believe in Darth Vader to say Darth Vader's doing wrong. And no one in a million years would say, who are you to judge Darth Vader? And you secretly really believe in him. You just don't want to live on the dark side. Like, what? No. And I understand that Christians won't have that reaction because they've separated the two. Star Wars, Harry Potter, that's fiction. The Bible, my God, that's truth. But can't you understand it's not truth to me? Is it really that hard to know that someone else can actually disagree with you? They can't all live in a world where they all actually believe that no one else can have a different belief system than them. So then why say this? They just really don't like God. Let's see what he says next.
I don't believe that anyone ever rejects the properly presented gospel for purely intellectual reasons. I don't think that ever occurs.
So he uses ever twice. Very clear about this. He doesn't believe that anyone ever rejects the Christian message if, here's our if, the gospel is presented correctly. This is like that same thing Mike Winger did in our video about divine hiddenness. It's leaving an out. If you heard the gospel message and you don't believe, it's because you heard the wrong gospel message. Then why is the gospel message that complicated? Why can't all Christians properly deliver the gospel message? You can have whichever version fits your particular sect of Christianity. Present it to me properly, and I'll still not believe it. And not because my heart is hardened, and not because I hate your God, but because the concept is faulty, and it comes from a book that has been proven to be faulty. That's why. So yes, I can intellectually disregard a properly given version of the gospel message, because to believe the gospel message is to believe that I am inherently made by a great, perfect, compassionate, loving, all-knowing, all-powerful, benevolent God. That's one. Two, to believe that I am so broken because of either his craftsmanship or his allowance of man to fall by wanting to get a little bit of knowledge before they had the knowledge. And that sin of seeking knowledge was great enough for sin to enter the world completely and to be bestowed upon everyone that would ever live for all time, despite their age, despite where they were born, to whom they were born, in what country, in what time frame, under what version of religion is apparent and popular at that time. And that the only way for their horrendous life to be reconciled with this great good God is for that God's son to have had to die for them, and then for that person to have to know about that death and to somehow cognitively get themselves to believe that that death erases that debt. I don't know if we're on 5 or not. Got a little too intense there. But we're somewhere around here. And for the video I did on rationalizing redemption, this part really doesn't make any sense to me. These parts here have a ton of issues with free will and the problem of evil, suffering, and divine hiddenness. And it's all based off one thing, the Bible, some part of Holy Scripture. And I have seen why that Bible cannot be true, why it is falsifiable. So you know what I did with it? I threw it out. It doesn't get to tell me how to live my life or what is true. It didn't work and it's false. I can reject that claim of the properly delivered gospel, and it's your opinion then that your gospel is so perfect and your message is so true that someone like me who spent 30 years honestly really believing it and really wanting it to be true and searching for the truth of it so that I could have the proper conviction necessary to pass it on to the next generation of my family. It's your opinion that I am the problem, and you're entitled to your opinion. But you're wrong about that opinion. I didn't fail the gospel failed me.
And now
Amen.
atheists are going, oh no, that's not true. I have well, at the judgment, that'll all be exposed and we're going to see.
I won't go on about this too long here, but it's so nasty to me. I mean, you can almost feel his hatred for the atheist who's too stupid and ignorant to believe. It's almost like, well, we'll see what happens to you then. Like, okay. At the judgment your book tells you will happen, that you hold on to because you've been so persecuted, you can't wait for me and the people like me to get our comeuppance when you have no answer after you just said twice that this never happens. And then you're hearing from atheists like me that this absolutely happens. There's absolutely an intellectual rejection of the gospel. And it just comes to, well, we'll see. Let's see about that. Let's see what the score is at the end of the day. Like, all right, buddy, no problem. No problem. Calm down.
And you're going, oh, there's not enough evidence for Christianity. No, you are wicked and you don't want Christianity to be true. That's the real issue.
And that is how we are going to end it. This is the most common thing that I have heard so far from believers in response to my claims of atheism. No, you're wicked. You just don't want it to be true. Let's evaluate that. Let's break it down. As a Christian, I still did sinful things. I still lied. I still gossiped. I still lost my temper. I still said things I shouldn't have said. I still had thoughts that would have been considered sin. And I still really cared about people. And when I did offend them, I had kind of this two-folded thing. I had, okay, I've offended them. I need to make it right with them, and I need to make it right with God. Now, I wouldn't have said I was wicked. I think that in general, I was a good person. I messed up like everyone messes up, but I wasn't out there doing a bunch of horrendous things, at least in terms of the Christian community. I wasn't out there willing ill towards anyone or just a person. I just messed up all the time, like everybody, like this guy, like the atheist over there, like the Hindu over there. I just messed up. What was awesome was in my back pocket, all I had to do was quote 1 John 1:9 or any other verse about confessing my sins and being justified before God and being forgiven and having my sins thrown as far as the east is from the west to be completely forgotten and disregarded. Because if you really want to get out of jail free card, it's being forgiven of a sin like it never happened. So if I was so wicked and I really believed that that wickedness was an offense to God who would hold me accountable on the day of judgment, and I could also get forgiven of that wickedness anytime I wanted by saying the magic words, why would I reject God to go be handed over to my sins? Like, I've never understood this claim from Christians. Are you saying that I believe in heaven and hell, that I believe in this God as the God and as righteous, that I know I'm sinning, and that my best plan is to purposely say I don't believe in him, even when I really do, so I can go sin in secret, even though I believe it won't stay a secret, and that I'll be judged for it and burned eternally in hell for it? You think I knew all that and I just decided to go sin instead of admit there's a God? Name one person who has done this. You're telling me that after 30 years of loving and following and knowing God and counting on him for my salvation and wanting to please him, that one day I just woke up and loved my sin so much I pretended he didn't exist? Make it make sense. I guess the only last part to examine there is his very final words. After he told me how wicked I was, he said, I don't want Christianity to be true. You know what I've realized about myself since deconverting is that there are many things in Christianity that I miss. I miss certain parts of the community. I miss the sense of forgiveness. You know, it's messy now. I mess up and I have to, without God, figure out a way to repair. Everyone in my life was a Christian, and so when I messed up against them, I could say, devil got me. I'm sorry. I sinned. I was selfish. right? And they have to forgive and they have to understand because they're a Christian who sins and also needs forgiveness. And then I can say that same thing to God, and that's going to be instantly forgiven. And man, this kind of just got handled. And what it really, I think, was more than anything was sweeping stuff under the rug. But being fully autonomous for my actual actions and being fully accountable to myself and to the real world consequences that will befall me, that is more work. And it would be nice if everything could just magically get better, like it does in a lot of, at least in the mind of a lot of Christians who believe in their version of repentance. I miss having something to worship. Maybe a better way to say it is I miss there being something holy or worth glory. I don't know what is the right term there, but I still understand like that need, that human need to see something that's better than us, right? I get that. There's many things. So would I want Christianity to be true? No, I don't think I want Christianity to be true, but not because I'm wicked and I don't want to be held accountable to someone or something, simply because I actually think it would be worse for the world if it were actually true. Are you telling me that Christianity is the best version of a God that we could do? That this is what you'd want it to be? A God who chooses to separate himself from the vast majority of his creation under rules that he set out, that has had this much suffering in the world? I don't. I would love if there was a creator God who cared about me, who found a way for everyone to really find him and for everyone to be with him. We just take for granted a lot of these concepts of Christianity, that there had to be this kind of free will that would allow this kind of suffering, that would allow for this kind of future where some of us could spend it all with God and that it would look like this. Like, no, if you're starting from scratch with any kind of God ever, I think we can do way better. I don't want Christianity to be true, because if there is a God, and if there was going to be a God, I'd want it to be one that did a lot better job with his omniscience and his omnipotence. That's what I'd want. But what I want doesn't matter, because where we are is reality. And the reality is that for everything that we can tell, when it comes to this particular God or these particular gods, and however big your collection of atheism is, because I am an atheist to the gods we have said we've known so far. I am specifically an atheist to the Abrahamic God that I was indoctrinated with. But I'm agnostic when it comes to all of the things that we don't know. I'm fine if there is a creator God, but so far it seems he wants nothing to do with me personally, if he does indeed even exist. And so I'm not going to continue to go out of my way for that. So that's how we're ending. Final definition of what atheism means to me. For the particular God that I am claiming I don't have enough evidence to believe in, and thus do not believe in, I do so only with that God or those gods, and only with the expressed purpose of saying that the evidence we have so far against him or them outweighs the evidence that we have for them, and that my natural inclination to believe what best convinces me is to not believe then in Yahweh. But that doesn't give me all the answers. It doesn't make me a better person. It just simply means I don't believe in that God. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts with me down below. I know we've talked about this topic a few times here and there. I wanted to put it all together one time. I'm looking forward to covering Exodus in a few days, so stick around on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time for our second episode of Secular Bible Study. And very soon we're having a conversation about how to get over your fear of hell. Lots more coming up, so please subscribe if you have not. Share these videos. Thank you to everyone who has continued to help me grow this channel. And if there's someone you'd like to see me do a video with, either an apologist or an atheist, let me know who I should be reaching out to, or better yet, reach out to them for me and say, hey, you should talk to Brandon from Mindshift. I'd love to get more conversations or debates going here on this channel. So have a wonderful day, and until next time, keep thinking.